He screamed at me for playing fetch with my dog in the yard, then threw the first punch at a grown woman, not a child. But as Wayne thought he'd taught me a lesson, he had no idea what lay buried beneath that grass. A metal box hidden years ago, containing secrets that could tear apart both his family and his company. I wasn't looking for sympathy, I was looking for truth, and to let that truth speak in court. The moment my shovel hit the lid of that box, my name is Lila Hart, and at 32, I'd built a career catching financial predators, but I never expected to find one living under my mother's roof. The afternoon it happened. Iron Vale's October sun cut sharp angles across our backyard. I'd just gotten home from North River Compliance Group, still in my work blazer, when Scout bounded over with his tennis ball. My golden retriever didn't understand property lines or Wayne's obsessive need to control every blade of grass. "Just one throw," I whispered, glancing toward the house. Wayne's truck wasn't in the driveway yet. The ball sailed across the yard. Scout tore after it, his paws kicking up small divots as he skidded to catch it near the back fence. That's when I noticed the fresh rope Wayne had strung up, marking off a section of lawn like crime scene tape. "What the hell are you doing?" I turned. Wayne stood in the sliding door. His Peters & Sons renovation polo stretched tight across his gut. Behind him, my mother Carol hovered, wringing her hands. "Scout ran onto the grass," I said evenly. "He's a dog." "That's fresh sod. Cost me $800. He stepped onto the deck, work boots heavy on the wood. "I told everyone. Stay off that section." "You told Mom and Bryce. You didn't tell me." My house, my rules. I felt the familiar tightness in my chest, the same sensation I got when reviewing flag transactions at work. Something was off. Wayne had never cared about the backyard before. Now suddenly he was protecting it like Fort Knox? "Actually," I said, "Mom's house, which makes it partly mine, considering Dad's will." The first punch caught me in the shoulder, spinning me sideways. I stumbled, work heels useless on the grass. The second blow, an open palm to my ribs, sent me to my knees. "Wayne!" My mother's scream cut through the ringing in my ears. I stayed down, not from pain but from calculation. Mrs. Duffy was watching from her kitchen window next door. The security camera on their garage would have caught everything. I memorized the angle, the time, 4:47 p.m., the way Wayne's shadow fell across the disturbed sod. "Get up," he growled, "and keep that mutt off my lawn." I rose slowly, brushing grass from my skirt. Scout cowered by the garden shed. Ball forgotten. My mother stood frozen in the doorway, her face a mask of practiced denial. "I'm calling the police," I said. Wayne laughed. "For what? Disciplining a spoiled brat who can't follow simple rules? You're 32 and still living with your mommy." "Living here to protect her assets," I corrected. "The ones you've been slowly stealing." His face darkened. "Watch your mouth." "Or what? You'll hit me again, in front of witnesses?" I pointed to Mrs. Duffy's window. Wayne followed my gesture, his jaw tightening when he spotted our elderly neighbor with her phone pressed to the glass. "This isn't over," he said. "No," I agreed, backing toward the house. "It's just beginning." Inside, I locked myself in my childhood bathroom and cataloged the evidence. Bruised shoulder, photographed. Torn blazer, saved. Grass stains on my skirt showing the angle of impact, documented. I'd learned from my job that paper trails won cases, not emotions. But as I stared at my reflection, something else nagged at me. That roped-off section of yard. Wayne's paranoia about anyone stepping on it. The same spot where Dad used to bury time capsules with me when I was 7, where the old maple tree had grown before Wayne cut it down last spring. What was under that fresh sod that Wayne didn't want anyone to find? That night, I couldn't sleep. Not from the bruises, those would fade, but from memories that Wayne's violence had shaken loose, like sediment in disturbed water. I'd been 23 when Mom married him, fresh out of college, working my first job at a small accounting firm. Dad had been gone 2 years, and I'd watched Mom shrink into herself, rattling around our family home like a ghost. Then Wayne appeared, charming, attentive, promising to take care of everything. He moved fast. Within 6 months, they were married. Within a year, his son Bryce had moved into my old room while I was crammed into the converted attic, and piece by piece, Dad's presence was erased from the house. His tools disappeared from the garage. His books vanished from the den. Even the vegetable garden he'd tended for 20 years was paved over for Wayne's workshop. But it was the paperwork that triggered my first real suspicion. "Just sign here, sweetheart." Wayne had said one Christmas, sliding documents across the kitchen table while Mom busied herself with pie. "Power of attorney stuff, in case your mom needs help managing things." I'd been young, distracted, trusting. Mom seemed happy. Why question it? Now, sitting at my desk at 3 a.m. with Scout curled at my feet, I pulled out the filing cabinet I'd inherited from Dad. He'd been meticulous about records, a trait that served me well in compliance work. I found the folder labeled House and Property and spread its contents across my desk. The original deed was clear. The house and its half-acre lot belonged to Mom. But there was more. A handwritten note in Dad's careful script, paper clipped to a survey map. Back quarter of the property, see highlighted section, held in trust for Lila, to be transferred on her 21st birthday. See attached addendum to will. My hands shook as I traced the highlighted area. It matched exactly with Wayne's current forbidden zone. The addendum was there, notarized and witnessed, but behind it, I found another document, one I didn't remember signing, a quitclaim deed, dated 3 months after my 21st birthday, transferring my interest in the property to Carol Hart Peters and Wayne Peters as joint tenants. I studied the signature. It looked like mine, but something was off. The way the L in Lila curved, the pressure of the pen strokes. I'd spent 5 years analyzing forged documents at North River. This had all the subtle tells of a careful fake. "Son of a bitch," I whispered. Scout whined. Sensing my distress, I scratched behind his ears, thinking, if Wayne had forged the quitclaim, what else had he fabricated? And why was he so protective of that specific section of yard? I crept downstairs to Dad's old study, now Wayne's office. The door was locked, but I still had Dad's keys. Inside, Wayne's desk was a chaos of invoices, contracts, and beer cans. I photographed everything, careful not to disturb the placement. In the bottom drawer, I found it, a folder marked Backyard Renovation Project. Inside were permits, sketches, and a contract dated last month. Wayne was planning to dig up the entire back section for a decorative pond and drainage system. The work was scheduled to begin next week. My blood went cold. He wasn't protecting that ground. He was preparing to destroy it. I thought of Dad's words, spoken so casually years ago. If you ever need the truth, listen under the maple. The maple was gone, but I remembered exactly where it stood, right in the center of Wayne's forbidden zone. Back in my room, I made a decision. I wouldn't run. I wouldn't let Wayne drive me from my home like he'd driven away Dad's memory, but I wouldn't be a victim either. I opened my laptop and began typing. Formal request for historical property records, Ironvale County Clerk. Chain of title search, 42 Willowbrook Lane. Michigan State Bar, forgery statutes and remedies. By dawn, I had a plan. Wayne thought he was dealing with the same scared 23-year-old who'd trusted too easily. He had no idea what 9 years in financial compliance had taught me about following money, exposing fraud, and building airtight cases. The bruises on my shoulder throbbed as I stretched. Good. Let them. Each purple mark was evidence. Each ache was motivation. Wayne Peters was about to learn why you don't forge documents when your stepdaughter investigates financial crimes for a living. The next morning, I called in sick to work, the first time in 3 years. My boss at North River understood. She'd seen the bruises when I'd stopped by to grab my forensic accounting toolkit. "Take all the time you need," she'd said. Then quietly, "And if you need our legal team..." I spent the day doing what I did best, following the money. Peters & Sons Renovation had a simple business model, at least on the surface. Wayne bid on residential projects. Bryce pretended to manage them, and a rotating crew of subcontractors did the actual work. But when I started cross-referencing permits with invoices, patterns emerged that made my compliance training scream. Invoice number 447. Kitchen remodel for the Riverside Community Center. Materials cost? $15,000. City records showed materials purchased, $8,000. Invoice number 502. Bathroom renovation for Councilman Torres. Labor, $12,000. Actual hours logged by subcontractors, worth maybe $6,000. Every third or fourth project showed the same inflation, always just below the threshold that would trigger automatic review, always for clients who happened to be city officials or community board members. Classic, I muttered, screenshotting everything. Kickbacks disguised as overages. But it was the backyard project that made me pause. According to the permits, Wayne had filed for drainage improvement and landscape renovation at our address. The approved budget? $25,000. The single bid submitted? Peters & Sons. Naturally. I dug deeper. The city inspector who'd approved the permit, Dennis Murphy, had also signed off on 16 other Peters & Sons projects in the last year. Every single one had passed inspection without revision. Statistically impossible unless... My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Stop digging or you'll regret it. I smiled grimly and kept working. The smoking gun came from an unlikely source. Bryce's Instagram. Wayne's son wasn't bright enough to make his profile private, and his posts were a goldmine of stupidity. Photos of him flashing cash, new truck, expensive watches, and 3 months ago, a picture of him and Dennis Murphy on a fishing boat with the caption, "Thanks for the weekend, Uncle D. Hatch, best inspector ever. Lake life." I cross-checked the date. 2 days after Murphy had approved a $40,000 emergency repair at the mayor's rental property, a repair that, according to my research, had never actually happened. Scout padded into my room, whining. It was past his dinner time. "Sorry, boy," I said, closing my laptop. "Let's get you fed." Downstairs, Mom was cooking Wayne's favorite, pot roast that would sit untouched while he drank his dinner from a bottle. She didn't look at me as I filled Scout's bowl. "He's not a bad man," she said suddenly. "He just has a temper. Dad never hit anyone. Your father is gone. His memory isn't, his will isn't, his intentions for this property aren't." She finally turned, and I saw the fear in her eyes. "Please don't make trouble, Lila. We need this house. I need this house." "It's your house, Mom, not his. And he's stealing from you just like he's stealing from half the city." "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly." I pulled out my phone, showing her the forged quitclaim deed. "He tricked you into giving him control, probably forged my signature to steal my inheritance, and now he's about to dig up the backyard to hide whatever evidence Dad left behind." She went pale. "How do you know your father left anything?" "Because you just confirmed it." Before she could respond, Wayne's truck roared into the driveway. I pocketed my phone and headed for the stairs. "Where are you going?" Wayne slurred as he stumbled in. "Too good to eat with the family?" "Working," I said. "Some of us have real jobs." His face darkened. "Watch your—" "Wayne," Mom's voice was sharp. "Please, not tonight." He glared at me but turned toward the kitchen. I climbed the stairs, Scout at my heels, already composing my next move. That evening, I drafted a civil asset preservation letter. In dry legal language, it notified Peters & Sons, the city planning department, and Inspector Dennis Murphy that any destruction of property at 42 Willowbrook Lane could constitute spoliation of evidence in pending litigation. I didn't have pending litigation yet, but they didn't need to know that. By midnight, I'd compiled everything into encrypted files with triple backups: financial fraud, permit violations, bribery, forgery, and at the center of it all, a section of backyard that Wayne was desperate to dig up before anyone could discover what lay beneath. Tomorrow, I'd make my move, but tonight, I sat by my window, watching Wayne's shadow pace back and forth across the forbidden zone, and wondered, What had my father hidden that was worth all this crime to conceal? The memory came to me during my morning run, sharp and sudden as October air in my lungs. I was 7, helping Dad plant the maple sapling. His hands, rough from construction work before he'd gotten his accounting degree, guided mine as we patted soil around the roots. "Know why we plant trees, sweetheart?" he'd asked. "For shade?" "For the future. Trees keep secrets better than any safe. They grow around things. Protect them." He'd winked. "If you ever need the truth, listen under the maple." I'd thought it was one of his philosophical musings. Dad was always saying things like that, half wisdom, half riddle. But now, 25 years later, I understood. That afternoon, while Wayne was at a job site and Mom at her book club, I knocked on Mrs. Duffy's door. "Lila, how's that shoulder?" She peered at me through thick glasses. "Healing, Mrs. Duffy. Do you still have that metal detector your husband used for his coin collecting?" Her face lit up. "In the garage. Harold loved that thing. Found a 1943 penny worth $12 once." She studied me shrewdly. "You hunting treasure?" "Something like that." 20 minutes later, I stood at the edge of Wayne's forbidden zone with the metal detector in hand. Scout watch from the deck, trained by Wayne's shouts to avoid the area. Smart dog. I switched on the device and began a methodical sweep. The detector chirped occasionally. Nails, bottle caps, the usual yard debris, but near where the maple had stood, it sang. Not a chirp, a sustained, high-pitched wail. My hands shook as I marked the spot with Scout's tennis ball. Something substantial was down there. Something metal. Something Dad had wanted protected by the roots of a tree that would have grown for decades if Wayne hadn't cut it down. But I couldn't dig. Not yet. Not without witnesses. Documentation. Legal protection. I'd learned that much from my job. Evidence obtained improperly was worse than no evidence at all. That evening, I made 2 calls. First, to my friend Marcus, who worked in the county surveyor's office. "I need the original plot survey for 42 Willowbrook Lane," I said, "the one from 1987. "That's your mom's place, right? Why do you need—" "Wayne's trying to dig up the backyard. I think he's encroaching on utility easements." Marcus snorted. "That idiot would— I'll email it tonight." The second call was harder. I found the number in Dad's old address book. David Reeves, his best friend and fellow accountant. They'd lost touch when Dad got sick, but I remembered Uncle Dave's booming laugh, his visits with complicated board games. "Lila? My God, is that really you?" His voice was older, frailer. "I've thought about calling so many times. How's your mother?" "She remarried. Dave, I need to ask you something about Dad." Silence, then, "Is this about the box?" My heart stopped. "You know about it?" "Tom asked me to witness something. Must have been 6 months before he passed. Said he was buying insurance for you. Made me promise if anything happened to him, and if you ever came asking, to tell you the combination." "What combination?" "Your birthday, month, day, year, 6 digits." He paused. "Lila, your dad was worried about something. Said your mother was too trusting, that someone might take advantage after he was gone. Is everything all right?" "It will be," I said. "Thank you, Dave." That night, I couldn't concentrate on anything. The metal detector sat in my closet like a loaded gun. Below my window, Wayne's forbidden zone lay in darkness, somewhere under that fresh sod and older earth. My father had buried a box Wayne somehow knew about, a box that required a combination. At 2 a.m., I crept downstairs to scan the survey Marcus had sent. My breath caught. The property lines were exactly as Dad's note had indicated. The back quarter was separate, designated as Lot B held in trust. But there was more, a handwritten note in the margin, in the surveyor's writing. Per owner request, iron stakes placed at corners of Lot B, depth 18 inches. Iron stakes, metal markers that would show exactly where my inheritance began and ended. That's what Wayne was trying to dig up, not just Dad's box, but the physical proof of my property rights. Without those markers, with the forged quitclaim deed, He could claim the entire lot had always been one parcel. I heard footsteps in the hall. Wayne, stumbling drunk toward the bathroom. I held my breath until they passed, then looked back at the survey. Tomorrow, I decided. Tomorrow I'd make my stand. But I'd do it smart, legal, bulletproof. Because whatever Dad had hidden in that box, it was worth Wayne risking fraud, forgery, and assault to keep buried. And that meant it was worth everything to dig it up. Wayne struck first. The restraining order arrived at my office 3 days later, delivered by a process server who looked embarrassed. I read it in the North River break room, my coffee growing cold. Petitioner Wayne Peters seeks protection from harassment by respondent Lila Hart, who has made false accusations, trespassed on areas of shared property under construction, and created a hostile living environment. Bullshit, my colleague Sandra said, reading over my shoulder. He can't ban you from your own home. He's not trying to ban me from the house, I said, scanning the details. Just the backyard, the construction zone. He's claiming I'm interfering with his business operations. It was clever, I had to admit. By framing the backyard as an active work site, he could legally keep me away while he dug up whatever evidence lay beneath. The hearing was set for next week. Coincidentally, 2 days after his excavation was scheduled to begin. Time to lawyer up. Arielle Monroe came recommended by North River's legal team. She was everything Wayne wouldn't expect. Young, Black, Harvard-educated, and absolutely ruthless when it came to property law. "He hit you?" she asked during our consultation, reviewing my photos. "Yes, but that's not—" "It's all connected." She pulled out a legal pad. "Domestic violence, financial fraud, property theft. Men like Wayne always think they're playing chess when they're really just knocking over pieces. We're going to play the whole board." We filed our response that afternoon, not just contesting his restraining order, but seeking our own, an emergency protective order for domestic violence, with a special provision preventing him from destroying, altering, or excavating any portion of the property pending resolution of ownership disputes. "He wants to use the legal system?" Arielle smiled like a shark. "Let's drown him in it." But Wayne had one more card to play. That evening, I came home to find Mom crying at the kitchen table. Spread before her were medical bills, dozens of them, all stamped past due. "He canceled my insurance," she whispered. "Said if I don't support him against you, he'll let them all go to collections. My credit will be ruined. We'll lose the house." I sat down, studying the bills, cancer treatments from 2 years ago, the surgery last spring, ongoing medications, thousands upon thousands of dollars. "Mom," I said gently, "he can't cancel your insurance without your consent. And these bills, when did they start arriving?" "Last month, Wayne said the insurance company made a mistake, that he was handling it." I felt the pieces click into place. "He's been collecting the insurance payments and pocketing them. Mom, this is fraud, criminal fraud." "I can't," she said. "I can't fight him. I'm too tired." "You don't have to fight," I squeezed her hand. "I will." I spent that night building a paper trail that would make a forensic accountant weep with joy. Insurance documentation, forged endorsements on checks, a pattern of theft going back years. By dawn, I had enough to put Wayne away for a decade. But prison wasn't the goal. The truth was, the next morning, Arielle filed an emergency motion with a twist. We requested a court-supervised excavation of the backyard, with representatives from both parties present. "If Mr. Peters claims he's merely installing drainage," she argued before Judge Chen, "then he should have no objection to court oversight, unless, of course, he has something to hide." Wayne's lawyer sputtered objections, but the judge, a no-nonsense woman who'd clearly seen every dirty divorce trick in the book, wasn't buying it. "Mr. Peters, you've simultaneously claimed this is urgent construction that can't be delayed, and that Ms. Hart is threatening your safety by being near it. You can't have it both ways." She signed the order. "Excavation may proceed Monday morning under court supervision. Sheriff's Department will provide security. Both parties may have representatives present. Wayne's face went purple. Bryce, sitting behind him, looked confused, his default expression. As we left the courthouse, Ariel pulled me aside. Monday morning, we dig, whatever's down there, we'll find it legally, properly, with full documentation. He can't stop us now. I nodded, but my eyes were on Wayne. He stood by his truck, phone pressed to his ear, gesturing frantically, planning something. Men like him always had a backup plan. Let him scheme, Ariel said, following my gaze. Come Monday, the truth comes up, one way or another. I thought of Dad's box, waiting patiently beneath the earth for 25 years. 3 more days. After everything, what was 3 more days? But watching Wayne's desperate phone calls, I wondered, what was he so afraid we'd find? Monday arrived with the kind of crisp clarity that makes every detail sharp. By 8 a.m., our backyard looked like a crime scene. Yellow tape marked the excavation zone. The sheriff's deputy stood by the gate, coffee in hand. The court-appointed surveyor checked his equipment while the videographer tested angles. Wayne paced like a caged animal, his lawyer whispering urgently in his ear. Bryce sat on the deck steps, scrolling through his phone, oblivious to the magnitude of what was happening. Ready? Ariel asked me. I nodded, gripping the metal detector. Let's find those property markers first. The surveyor, a methodical man named Harrison, had already started. According to the 1987 survey, the first iron stake should be here. He swept his detector over the ground. It sang immediately. 18 inches down, I said, just like the survey noted. Wayne stepped forward. That proves nothing. Could be any piece of metal. Then let's dig, Judge Chen said. She'd surprised everyone by attending personally. That's why we're here. The excavation crew worked carefully, documenting each layer of soil. At 16 inches, they hit metal. Harrison brushed away the dirt, revealing a rusted iron stake with boundary marker Lot B stamped on top. Mark it, the judge ordered. Find the others. One by one, they located all 4 stakes, perfectly matching the original survey. My inheritance was real, documented, literally set in stone and iron. Wayne's face grew grayer with each discovery. Now, Ariel said, let's address the elephant in the room, or rather, under it. I led them to the spot where the metal detector had screamed 3 days ago, where Dad's maple once stood, where something waited. Proceed, Judge Chen said. The first shovelfuls revealed nothing unusual. Then, at 2 feet, the spade hit something hard. Metal, but not iron. The excavator switched to hand tools, carefully clearing the earth. A green metal box emerged, the kind banks used for documents in the 1990s. Heavy-duty, waterproof, with a combination lock still intact despite the years. Stop, Wayne shouted. That could be anything. Old septic equipment, construction debris. With a combination lock? The judge raised an eyebrow. I think not, Ms. Hart. Do you know the combination? I knelt beside the box, my hands trembling. Dad's friend Dave had told me my birthday. Month, day, year. I spun the dials. 061592. The lock clicked open. Document everything, Ariel instructed the videographer. Inside, wrapped in plastic, were 3 items that made Wayne stumble backward. First, Dad's amended will, notarized and witnessed, clearly stating that Lot B was mine at 21, that no transfer could occur without my explicit, witnessed consent before a judge. Second, a USB drive and a notebook filled with Dad's careful handwriting, financial records, account numbers, and detailed notes about irregularities in Peters & Sons billing practices dating back to before Wayne even met Mom. That's impossible, Wayne sputtered. Tom Hart died before you married Mom? I stood, holding the notebook. But not before you started billing her for emergency repairs after Dad's diagnosis. Not before you began grooming her, identifying the wealthy widow with the sick husband. The third item was a sealed envelope addressed to me. Inside, a letter in Dad's handwriting. My dearest Lila, if you're reading this, then my concerns were justified. I've watched Wayne Peters operate in our community, taking advantage of vulnerable people during difficult times. I fear your mother may be his next target. The evidence in this box should protect you both. Trust your instincts. Fight for what's right. All my love, Dad. This is entrapment, Wayne's lawyer protested. Fruit of the poisonous tree. My client? Your client, Judge Chen interrupted, is currently under investigation for fraud, forgery, and domestic violence. This court-supervised excavation has revealed properly preserved evidence directly relevant to multiple ongoing matters. She turned to the sheriff's deputy. Deputy Martinez, please escort Mr. Peters off the premises. He's violated the protective order by approaching Ms. Hart within 50 feet. What? I haven't moved. The order specifies 50 feet. This backyard is 40 feet wide. You've been in violation since you arrived. The judge smiled coldly. Perhaps you should have read the fine print. As Deputy Martinez led Wayne away, still protesting, I plugged the USB drive into Ariel's laptop. Spreadsheets filled the screen. Names, dates, amounts, every inflated invoice, every kickback, every forged document. Dad had been investigating Wayne for years, building a case he never lived to file. Your father was thorough, Ariel breathed. This is enough to bury him, I finished, just like he tried to bury the truth. Mom stood on the deck, tears streaming. I'm sorry, Lila. I should have listened. He fooled everyone, Mom, even Dad. At first. That's why he left us this insurance policy. The excavation continued, but I'd found what mattered. Truth. Preserved in metal and paper and digital files. Justice. Delayed but not denied. And somewhere, I like to think, Dad was smiling. Wayne Peters had been right about one thing. Secrets stayed buried only as long as no one had the courage to dig them up. The dominoes fell fast. By Tuesday afternoon, Ariel had filed Dad's evidence with the state attorney's office. By Wednesday, Peters and Sons' office was wrapped in yellow tape. By Thursday, Dennis Murphy was escorted from City Hall in handcuffs, and 3 councilmen had retained lawyers. I watched it all from my desk at North River, fielding calls from reporters who'd somehow gotten my number. No comment became my mantra, though I wanted to scream the truth from rooftops. The real satisfaction came in smaller moments. Like when Bryce called, panicked. The cops took all our computers, Dad's trucks. They froze the bank accounts. What am I supposed to do? Get a real job, I suggested, and hung up. Or when former Peters and Sons clients started calling Mom, not with condolences, but with relief. We always suspected those invoices were inflated, Mrs. Jameson said, but who questions a grieving widow's contractor? The criminal investigation revealed Wayne's scam went deeper than even Dad had discovered. 43 fraudulent projects over 6 years, $800,000 in overcharges, 12 city officials implicated in the kickback scheme. But it was the civil proceedings that truly buried Wayne. Your Honor, Ariel announced at the property hearing, we've discovered that Mr. Peters filed fraudulent permits for 17 separate properties, claiming ownership he didn't possess. This includes the attempted theft of Ms. Hart's inherited portion of 42 Willowbrook Lane. Judge Chen, who'd taken a special interest in our case, reviewed the evidence with barely concealed disgust. Mr. Peters, you forged a signature to steal property from a young woman whose father had just died? Wayne's new lawyer, the third that week, the others had quit, stammered about misunderstandings and good faith errors. Good faith? The judge held up the forged quitclaim deed. I've seen middle school students forge hall passes more convincingly. She turned to the court recorder. Let the record show that all property transfers allegedly authorized by Lila Hart are hereby voided. Title to Lot B shall be restored to Ms. Hart immediately. But Wayne wasn't done fighting. That evening, he violated the protective order again, approaching me in the Kroger parking lot. You destroyed everything, he hissed, keeping just outside the 50-foot limit. my business, my reputation, my life. I loaded my groceries calmly. No, Wayne, you did that. I just dug up the evidence. Your father was a nobody, a bean counter who thought he was a detective. That bean counter documented every crime you committed. I closed my trunk. And that nobody raised a daughter who knew how to finish what he started. His face contorted. For a moment, I thought he might rush me. Protective order be damned. Then Deputy Martinez's cruiser pulled into the lot. Not a coincidence. I'd texted him when I saw Wayne's truck. Move along, Peters, Martinez called. Unless you want to add stalking to your charges. Friday brought the final blow. The state contractors board revoked Peters & Sons' license. The IRS announced an audit going back 7 years. 3 more city officials were arrested, and Mom, finally finding her spine, filed for divorce. That evening, I stood in the backyard with Scout, looking at the hole where Dad's box had been. The property stakes now bore fresh survey flags, clearly marking what was mine, what had always been mine. Ms. Hart? A voice called from the gate. I turned to find Harrison, the surveyor, holding a metal detector. Sorry to bother you, but I was curious. Your father, he buried that box directly between the 4 property markers, dead center, mathematically perfect. That's not easy without professional equipment. I smiled. He was an accountant. Precision was his thing. Still, Harrison shook his head admiringly. It's like he knew someone would need to find it, like he was leaving a treasure map in iron and earth. After he left, I sat on the deck, Scout's head in my lap. Mom joined me, looking older but somehow lighter. I'm sorry, she said, for not believing you, for choosing him over. You were lonely. He was a predator. That's what they do. Find people who need something and pretend to provide it. Your father tried to warn me. That last month, he kept saying to watch out for Wayne Peters. I thought it was the medication talking. Dad saw what Wayne was. He just ran out of time to stop him. I squeezed her hand. But he made sure we'd have what we needed when the time came. She nodded, then asked quietly, What happens now? Wayne goes to prison. You keep your house. I build something worthwhile on my 1/4 acre. I scratched Scout's ears. And we never, ever ignore our instincts again. Mom went inside, but I stayed on the deck as darkness fell. Tomorrow, the contractors Wayne had terrorized would start getting restitution. The city officials would face justice. The truth would continue its slow, thorough work of destroying everything Wayne had built on lies. Dad was right. The truth had been down there all along, protected by earth and metal and time. All it needed was someone with the courage to dig it up, and a good dog to show the way. The final paperwork arrived on a Tuesday morning. 3 months after we'd unearthed Dad's box, I signed my name, my real signature, on the settlement documents while Ariel explained each page. Wayne's agreed to everything, she said. Full restitution for the forged deed. Title to Lot B officially transferred to you. Removal of his name from all property documents, and, she smiled, compensation for emotional distress, legal fees, and lost inheritance value. The amount has been withdrawn from his remaining assets before the criminal forfeiture. What about Mom? The divorce is final. She keeps the house, free and clear. Wayne gets his tools and whatever the federal government doesn't seize. I nodded. Signing the last page, it was over. That afternoon, I stood at the property line with Marcus from the surveyor's office. We'd become friends during the ordeal, bonding over property maps and righteous anger. So what are you building? He asked, gesturing at my 1/4 acre. A workshop, I said. Like Dad always wanted. A place to fix things, build things, maybe teach kids woodworking on weekends. Tom would have loved that. Yeah, he would have. Wayne's sentencing was the following week. 5 to 7 years for the fraud, plus 2 for the forgery. He stood in his orange jumpsuit, finally looking as small as he'd always been. When the judge asked if he had anything to say, he mumbled about being misunderstood. Bryce wasn't there. He'd fled to Florida, posting Instagram stories about starting fresh while working at a beach bar. Dennis Murphy and 4 city officials took plea deals. Peters and Sons Victim Restitution Fund had already paid out $300,000. Mom and I attended every day of the trial, not for revenge, but for closure, for Dad. On the last day, as Wayne was led away in shackles, he looked back at us. I expected hatred in his eyes, but found only emptiness. He was a man who'd built his life on stolen ground, and when the foundation crumbled, there was nothing left. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. This time, I didn't say no comment. My father knew what Wayne Peters was. I told them. He spent his final years documenting crimes, protecting evidence, making sure the truth would surface. He knew I'd fight when the time came. He just made sure I'd have the ammunition. "What's next for you?" one asked. "I'm building a workshop on my property. Hart & Associates Financial Consulting, specializing in forensic accounting and fraud detection." I smiled. Turns out there's a real market for keeping contractors honest. That evening, I had dinner with Mom for the first time in months without Wayne's shadow over us. We ate in peaceful silence until she spoke. "I dream about your father sometimes. He's always in the garden, planting things." She smiled sadly. "He tells me he's proud of you." "I dream about him too," I admitted. "He's usually teaching me something, how to read a contract, how to spot a lie, how to dig properly." We laughed, real laughter, not the nervous kind we'd perfected during the Wayne years. A week later, I broke ground on the workshop. Mom, Scout, Mrs. Duffy, and half the neighborhood came to watch. As my shovel bit into earth, my earth, legally and rightfully mine, I thought about cycles, about things buried and things unearthed, about fathers who plan ahead and daughters who see things through. The workshop opened 6 months later. Above the door, a simple sign, Hart & Associates, building trust on solid ground. Dad would have appreciated the wordplay. My first client was one of Wayne's victims, an elderly woman who'd paid $30,000 for a bathroom renovation worth $10,000. My second was a whistleblower from another construction company. Word spread. Turns out when you take down the biggest fraud in county history, people trust you to find their own buried truths. Scout, now graying around the muzzle, supervises from his bed in the corner. Sometimes I catch him staring at the spot where we found the box, tail wagging like he remembers his part in the discovery. Wayne Peters thought he could bury the truth under fresh sod and forged signatures. He thought he could silence it with his fists and legal threats. He learned what Dad always knew. Truth is patient. It waits under the surface, protected by time and love and careful planning, until someone with courage comes to dig it up. And sometimes, all it takes is a good dog, a game of fetch, and the determination to fight for what's right. The truth wasn't buried to hide it. It was buried to preserve it. Just like Dad knew it would be. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Your experiences and insights make this community special. Until next time, keep digging for your own truths.